All right, and welcome to another episode of the Firearms Chat Podcast, the third week in a row because Greg is back. This one for June 18th, 2020. And our special guest tonight is the return of our favorite Michigan State firearms trainer, Rick Ector. He's the man. Rick, what's going on?
Hey, man, glad to be back. And you know what? I am glad that I've officially earned the designation as favorite Michigan firearms instructor, man. And that is quite an accomplishment. And you know what? I will revel in it, and I want to thank you for the honor and the distinction.
Well, because you're the man. Let me do the reads real quick. Of course, we are the Firearms Chat Podcast. Find us at firearmschatpodcast.com. My email is firearmschat@gmail.com. My partner, Greg Hutton, who is in his third week of his triumphant return. It's almost like I need like 3 bugles to sound when I say that. Greg's email is firearmschat2@gmail.com. Of course, we're members of the Self-Defense Radio Network. Let me give you that one more time for special effect in my sportscaster voice. The Self-Defense Radio Network. And that's selfdefenseradio.net or capital SDRN.small.us. And you can also find us on Facebook at the Firearms Chat and Self-Defense Radio Network pages. Okay, my partner, of course, Greg Hutton, and our guest, Rick Ector. Gentlemen, we shall commence. Rick, welcome back to the podcast. Right. Let's talk.
Hey, man, you know what? Thanks for having me back. And you know what? Just talking to you offline earlier, I had not realized that it had been so much time since I was last on.
Well, yeah, we talk all the time, you and I, but the last time you were on the show was almost a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm. You know, time flies.
Yeah, man. And we know you're busy. We know you're busy, so we don't want to oh, Rick, can you come on? And we were just on 3 weeks ago. Can you come on again? We don't do that to guests. We give you a chance to either be sick and tired of us,
right,
or you can't wait to come back. That's what Tracy Becker. Tracy Becker says she come. Tracy Becker says she come every 6 weeks.
Okay, that's a nice rotation there.
She's a good gal. We love her. She's a great instructor and a top-notch competitor. But anyway, Rick, let's talk to you about becoming famous thanks to Fox News' Tucker Carlson. How did that spot?
Oh man, this has really been a while, man. Tucker Carlson, and you know what? It has a certain amount of cachet when I can say, "Oh, Tucker Carlson, that was old news." But yeah, they had us on, man, and they wanted to profile some of my students who, unfortunately had to use their gun to defend themselves. And of course, they were my 2 students. And one of the things is that I guess I served as a gateway or as a bridge between both cases because I got to appear on both episodes, which were, on back-to-back nights, man. And, I got a lot of buzz and a lot of positive feedback, man. The only thing bigger than Tucker Carlson, man, what would that be? Oh, man. The show that comes on right after Tucker Carlson,
Sean Hannity.
Sean Hannity. Hey, if someone out there knows Sean Hannity, let them know that I'm available.
Well, as a matter of fact, I used to live about 6 minutes away from where Sean Hannity currently lives. And I don't know him personally, but I have a friend who works at Fox, who I will not name. I will just say he's a certain weekend host. And he's very good friends with Sean. And I am going to put the little birdie in my friend's ear to put the birdie in Sean's ear that he should have you on. Sean has obviously, it's a lot easier to get a pistol permit in New York when you're a celebrity. But Sean has a pistol permit, and he's been shooting 25 years. His dad was a parole officer, and his mom was a prison guard. So he's got relatives. He's got an uncle that's was an FBI agent. He's got a cousin who's currently a DEA agent.
Hey, Bill, I heard that Tucker Carlson went way up in the ratings just this last week because ESPN decided to use SportsCenter to talk about the NFL players when the NFL came back to play, which NFL players were going to be kneeling and what they were going to be doing to protest. And ESPN tanked SportsCenter. They were rated below Jay Leno's Garage. So it was less than 200,000 views.
Well,
So
this is the thing that kills me. I'm a lifelong football guy. My family had Giant seasons tickets in the family for 60 years.
Okay.
I had a press credential to cover the Giants and the NFL draft as well as numerous college football teams for over 30 years. And if
at least you guys had a couple of Super Bowls in there, man. At least.
Well, you're going to get your chance. Don't worry.
When?
Detroit will get their chance.
When?
I don't know if it's the players, my friend. I think it may be the coaching.
That's what the draft is supposed to take care of.
Well, obviously it doesn't, because when you have money under the cap, but this is not a football show, so I'm not going to discuss the salary cap. This is not a sports show.
Bill going on football.
Right. Get them all worked up, right?
But Bill may never watch another NFL game again if they kneel.
Yeah.
Because it took me 2 years to come back after 2016. So, anyway, Rick, that made you famous. We already knew you were famous, but that made you famous on a national TV level, and I can't tell you how many people in the weeks after that segment aired, hey, did you see that spot on Tucker Carlson with that guy from Michigan, Rick Ector? I said, I've had Rick Ector on my show. I know Rick.
Right. Yeah, that must be really cool. Be like, not only did I see the spot and know the guy, he actually was on my show first.
Do some marketing here. Put the Tucker Carlson clip on our webpage or on our Facebook page. I'm
going to do that, but I DVR'd it. By the way, I have both those episodes DVR'd. Nice. My wife wanted to delete them recently, and I said, no. Rick is on there.
No, definitely not. No. Thank you for saving me.
Got to preserve that for posterity.
Absolutely. That's like Michael Bain's first episode.
Man. I might lose my copy, but I...
That's like Rick's two segments with Tucker is like the same thing as, Michael Bain's first episode of The Best Defense, man. You can't delete that off your DVR. That's gun ownership sacrilege.
Up to date, it has been the highlight of my career. Now, all I have to do is get on Hannity, man, and then you know what? I might be able to just wrap it up, man. Hey.
Nah, stop it. You can't wrap it up yet. You have too many more people you have to train. And, to that relationship, with relationships in our business and also relating to law enforcement, I know that you have met your police chief, James Craig. What is your relationship like with Chief Craig?
I don't talk to him often. Lately I haven't been doing a lot of public appearances, but whenever I do see him, and it's been, relatively short number of times, it's always cordial and warm. He's a very good guy. I remember one time I did a Chief Craig Appreciation Day because City Council was beating up on him so bad for his pro-gun and pro-self-defense views, and he just recently recovered from COVID-19, and we're connected on Facebook, and I sent him an inbox on Facebook saying, hey man, I just heard about your diagnosis and your illness, and that I'm praying for you, man, and I wish you a speedy and full recovery. And the very next day he responded back and thanked me, man, and I'm happy to report for those that have been following him, he's back on the job, and I'm glad to see him there.
Was James Craig the one that it was, I think, maybe it could have been several years ago, but he actually stood up in front of the news cameras and said that if you live in Detroit and you want protection,
Yes.
you better go get
Yes.
a gun and learn how to use it.
Yeah, he said until the police get there. He said, hey, the police may not get there in time. And he said, hey, if you're a legal gun owner and you have a gun, by all means, if we can't get there, do what you have to do. Protect yourself, your home, and your family.
Now, all we have to do is get him to make that a commercial for you.
I didn't remember his name, but I had a lot of respect for him taking that position over the Detroit mayor and city council and all that.
Well, he came to Detroit when our government was, for lack of a better term, on hiatus associated with the emergency financial manager that was installed during the Detroit bankruptcy. And so for all purposes and intent, we did not have a functional government, and we were being directed and led by the financial manager. I can't remember his name offhand, but he went out and found Chief Craig and lured him here to Detroit. And we actually had a police chief before we had a mayor. and he's been here ever since. I know the mayor, our current mayor, is not a pro-gun, pro-self-defense guy. And I've had a conversation with him at a public event that he was speaking at not too long ago. And I put him on the spot in the Q&A session. And I said, well, hey, at one point in time, this is the statement you made where, you weren't in favor of citizens having guns. And I said, well, after, your time in the office, if someone posed that question to you, would you change your mind? And basically what he said was, I still believe that the people should put it to a vote. So, in my opinion, and the way I read his subliminal message is that he's still not in favor. But
no,
he's career politician.
Yeah, he doesn't rub me in that. I don't get that warm and fuzzy with him with the 2A.
But I give credit to people who can evolve. And I think Chief Craig has even said that he was of the position that he wasn't really in favor of citizens having carry permits and owning guns. And it wasn't until he policed and assumed positions of leaderships in other municipalities and other cities and other states that he saw that there was a different mindset and that the people there wouldn't accept anything less. And he grew and evolved, and eventually he came to see the public benefit of an armed citizenry who are capable of operating firearms lawfully and justly. And he brought that attitude back home to Detroit, man, and it's been a welcome breath of fresh air.
Right, because he was in LA for 11 years, right?
He's been all over the place, even in New England, and
right.
I think he was out on the West Coast and all that.
He was in South Portland, Maine, which was a culture shock for him because he's walking into the bank and on the same line with him in the bank are 3 people open carrying, and he's like, oh wow.
I'm not sure what it's like I was actually born in Michigan, but I haven't been there since I was 5, and so I'm not sure what it's like in Michigan. But I noticed that when I moved to Ohio, obviously I didn't have a carry permit when I first got here, and I was driving around on California plates, and I got some real attitude from sheriff's deputies and police officers that would pull me over. And it was funny because as soon as I got my carry permit, and here they attach your permit to your license plate and your driver's license. So every time you get run, they know you have a carry permit and you're probably armed. And I'm telling you, the attitude was black and white. I mean, I always call it driving while from California. It's almost, I mean, they would pull me over because I had California plates. I know it for a fact. They never admitted it, but I knew it.
Well, I did the same thing to us here when we first moved here.
Right.
We had New York plates in Arizona. And I'm telling you, that was the first thing we did even before I got my Arizona permit. And I got my Arizona permit on the 92nd day that I was here.
And when I got mine, they said, I mean, the first time I got pulled over, it was kind of like, we have to announce. And so I told them I was armed, and everything went it was like we were buds. He was real easygoing, handed me my license back and said, well, you were only 6-7 miles an hour over the speed limit. I'll just give you a warning this time. And he walked off and everything was cool. And I thought, what happened? What changed? And it didn't hit me until like a year later that it was probably the fact that I was a registered gun owner. I had already been cleared. I was carrying on me, so they didn't have to worry about me being a criminal. Makes the stop a whole lot easier. They don't get all excited when they see that. So I actually like the benefit of having the officers more calm and cool.
Right. Right. Okay.
I'm hoping it'll be the same in Detroit.
Yeah. Well, it's a mixed bag, man. Sometimes you come across enlightened police officers and, that they appreciate it. And you get some that really don't care, and some that aren't impressed by it, So, to each their own, man. I treat every law enforcement officer, in general as great guys. I know right now across the nation, we're hearing a lot of statements being made about police officers, and none of it seems to be particularly good. But I stand by the fact that I believe that the overwhelming majority of law enforcement officers are honorable and follow the law and don't do any crooked dealings and are well behaved with the public. But, like any other profession, there are some bad apples that really make the whole barrel look bad, man. And I really think that if we could take a look at a better way of screening people before they get hired into law enforcement, or if there was some mechanism by which, you don't have that thin blue line that keeps problem officers from getting the counseling or career change that they need, so.
I agree. I totally agree. And that's coming from a guy with, cops all throughout his family who was a reserve deputy himself. Believe me, I totally agree. There are a lot of people that don't belong behind a badge.
And I'm completely transparent about that, and I'm completely honest when I say I believe the overwhelming vast majority are great cops. It's just a small, teeny tiny, minuscule minority that unfortunately do bad things and get the headlines that gets magnified that causes a public perception problem that they're battling right now. And I think we had, last night, a couple, what was it? Was it, what state was that? Atlanta, where, some cops allegedly walked off, because of, how the public is treating them. I believe one officer
it continued today. It continued today. There was a blue flu in Atlanta.
And now police are finding ground glass and razor blades in their food when they eat out. A lot of them are saying they can't even get fast food anymore because it's too dangerous.
And that's really unfortunate. And you know what? Someone needs to be held accountable for that. And it's really a shame that, that a person's personal politics would translate into negative criminal behavior. I mean, putting, external items in someone's food, man, that's that's right up there with some of the worst things that you can do to somebody, man.
Exactly. That's making it personal.
Yeah. Okay, so Rick, you've done a lot of local appearances lately on television. You've been critical of your the Wicked Witch of Lansing, Governor Whitmer.
Say it ain't so.
Well, man, I at heart, man, I really take my rights seriously, man, and
as we all should.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a problem, and I have not been shy about saying it. I have had a problem about the stay-at-home order since it was first announced. There's no secret there. My thing is that if you're straight and honest with people and you're transparent and you tell them what we're facing, what we know and what we don't know, they'll make a rational decision as to what actions they will partake in. And that translates into being out in public. If there's a a virus, the COVID-19 virus that's out there, and you're in a particular demographic that is especially susceptible to it, then maybe you should modify your behavior and stay home. I don't think that punishing and making everyone else de facto default criminals is the solution.
No.
And we knew going into this thing that there was no cure for it and that a very small percentage of people would be negatively impacted, but there was still a great chance for positive outcomes. And one of the things that we're seeing now, months and months later into this thing, a lot of places that had abnormally large fatalities or deaths, it's really shining a spotlight on those particular situations. Like now in certain states, they're shining a spotlight on how we're treating our seniors in these senior care facilities.
Like New York.
It's suggesting that maybe they weren't getting the level of care that they should have been receiving in these places, in these nursing homes or these senior facilities.
Exactly.
And it's not necessarily because of the virus itself, but I mean, of course, the virus had a play in it. But once you come down with it, it's all about making sure that you get the appropriate treatment and health care. And if an abnormal amount of people are falling ill and dying in a particular geographic area, you have to say, man, that there's a problem here, and someone needs to do something about it.
I had to, when I lost my leg 2.5 years ago, I had to spend 3 weeks in a rehab hospital, which was phenomenal. They taught you how to cope with your loss of your limb. But then I had to spend a week in what they call an acute care facility, a nursing home. I told my wife, I said, get me out of here, and if I ever get sick, cut my oxygen off, because I'm not coming back to a place like this. They search your stuff. It was horrible. I was very fortunate that I had a room to myself. I told them, do not put somebody else in my room.
Right. One of the things that came out of that stay-at-home order, man, were some public comments made by some local elected officials. Well, not elected officials. This one guy was a pastor at this very large mega church in Detroit, and he was highly critical of some of the protests that were taking place against the governor. And he chose to go in front of the cameras at the major Fox 2 affiliate here in Detroit and make a statement that I found a little unsettling. And what this pastor said was that if black people were to come together en masse at a political outing, the cops here are so racist, the Michigan State Police would have shot and killed them. And I thought,
wow.
You laugh, and I'm like, I was so floored by his statement that I really thought someone should put it to the test. But I had an opportunity when, unfortunately, in the aftermath of a couple of shootings that have gotten a lot of media attention lately. I'm talking about the Arbery case, the George
Floyd case,
and a few
Breonna
others.
Breonna Taylor.
Right. Breonna Taylor and a few others, and
which was absolutely a shame, because that was a girl who was a young lady who was an EMT who was studying to be a nurse.
Right. And we put together a rally surrounding those deaths, and that, hey, like I mentioned earlier on this show, like, we believe that at least my personal opinion is that most officers are law-abiding, and if there's a few bad apples that need to be filtered out, we need to do that. But that was ostensibly the purpose of the rally. But, given the fact that the people that I'm socially connected to online, they're in the gun community, well, they're like me. They take guns everywhere they go. So there was a high proportion, if not everyone that was there at the rally, that was armed. And some people chose to do it concealed, and some people chose to do it open carry. And then some people had handguns, and some people had, long rifles, ARs. And, the media who were covering the event because of the anti-hate rally, they were like, man, look at all these guys with guns, and they're all black and brown people, and they got long guns and they had handguns. Mm-hmm. That became a separate story in of itself. And by happenstance, I was able to refute the commentary that was issued by this local pastor at this mega church that, black people own guns and we carry guns too. We may not necessarily be so open and vocal about it, but gun rights are for everyone, and everyone in just about every demographic that exists in our country, takes full possession of their rights, including those afforded to us by the Second Amendment.
I heard something, and it's funny you bring that up because I saw something that in the 36 hours after the George Floyd murder, 869 people joined the U.S. African American Gun Owners Association. That in itself, I believe, is a tremendous step in the right direction.
Correction, Bill. It was it's NAAGA, NAGA, National African American Gun Owners Association.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And it was another case, the Philando Castile case that happened in Minnesota, that was really, in my opinion, which was the moment of truth, as I like to define it, as it relates to black people and gun rights organizations. And at that time, this was about 4 or 5 years ago, and that situation had just recently unfolded. And a lot of black people across the country were really looking for a statement of some sort to be made by the NRA. And the NRA didn't take a position on it for whatever reason. And I know I was critical of them not taking a stand against it because ostensibly here we have a law-abiding gun guy, who just happened to be black and, he died.
Right.
And that was the motivation or the impetus that the NRA failed to capitalize on because they didn't make a statement. All of these black and brown people then said, well, look, maybe the NRA isn't willing to speak out on our issues. Who will do that? And NAGA, NAAGA, was still, it's just basically brand new. Their membership rank swelled, man. And
Rick, do you feel that the NRA took stands on other racial shootings, or maybe I should say, again, with all public shootings? The NRA doesn't typically take a stand on them, right?
They don't. And I'm not vilifying them for not taking a stand. That's just their standard MO. I'm just telling you that from the black community standpoint, this was something that they were looking for the NRA to do something that they don't typically do. And because because they were consistent in not taking a stand, they took that silence to mean that they were indifferent to the concerns of black and brown people. And look, I am an NRA member. I am a life member. I serve on the NRA's outreach committee. There is no bigger booster that I can think of, especially in the Metro Detroit area and the state of Michigan, than the NRA. I mean, flat out. There are a lot.
I wasn't trying to question your views on the NRA. I just wondered if you had information that the NRA had taken stances before.
No, they hadn't
on this one.
They hadn't, but I'm just saying from the perspective of black people, they were looking for some type of statement on that. And of course they were they were doing what they normally do, not take a position. And so I believe members of the black community took that as indifference. And instead of joining the NRA, they chose to join this brand new organization. And I have nothing negative to say about NAAGA. I think they're a great organization. And if they can channel and funnel through, people of color who want to embrace their Second Amendment rights and participation in an organized fashion by joining an organization who will speak to them and or lobby for them, then great. There's another nascent beginning organization that's out there that represent gun owners. And man, I'll tell you, gun ownership is one of those statuses that, you know, is present in just about every demographic you can think about. And especially in this post-COVID-19 environment, when everyone's thinking about potential concerns to the economy, you know, the unrest that we're having, the law enforcement community feeling ostracized, and a lot of them are talking about leaving the profession. And there's talk that it's already hard enough to get people to consider a career in law enforcement, and many people that would have considered it are now taking a second thought, and they're like, well, nah, why would I join that occupation that isn't really appreciated by the general public, and that maybe I should look at another career path. So I get it. I see the whole complete picture, man. But
I agree with you.
Funny. It's funny that you both brought it up that way, because what I'm hearing from the young folks that I know who are in criminal justice school is that they are considering not going into uniform law enforcement. They're considering going into directly into either private executive security or federal investigative services, either the FBI or the
community. The law enforcement community is being beat up and maligned severely right now, man. And I think the level of criticism that's leveled their way, I think, is unjustified as a profession. When we talk about these individual specific cases where we're naming specific victims who were killed by specific bad police officers, yes, we need to shine a light on those cases, and yes, we need to take a look at what allows these officers not to be addressed sooner before bad things happen. But, you know, one of the consequences that's going to happen from all of this attention is that good people who could have some good, solid careers and do some really great work in their community, as you guys just mentioned, are going to shun law enforcement. And some people on the political other side of the spectrum, they seem to think that if we can replace half, if not most, law enforcement officers with social workers would be a positive benefit. I would like to offer a contrary opinion. If I personally was involved in an attack where someone's trying to home invade me or attack me, rob me, kill me, I don't want a social worker. No, I want a law enforcement officer with a gun who's going to help me protect myself. But no, I don't want a social worker. So,
you know, two things. One is that we've got over 1.2 million police officers on the streets. Even if only 1% of them were bad, you're looking at 12,000 members of law enforcement that need to kind of be weeded out or go through additional training or whatever you want. And I don't even think the number is as low as 1%. I mean, the standards for being a law enforcement officer vary hugely from state to state, from city to city.
That's right.
If you start in a law enforcement department that has a chief, a lieutenant, and 3 patrol officers, chances are you didn't get a whole lot of training. They handed
probably
you a badge.
Got it all on the
said,
job, right?
Yeah, here's where you drive. You know, go patrol this and do what you think is best. And of course, if you go to NYPD, you've got 33,000 police officers in one city, and they're being watched and evaluated every single move they make. So, you know, there isn't, I mean, it could just be a training problem. It could be a personality problem. But I think that if people understood what the law enforcement job actually was, because so many of them get into, I watched a video the other day on YouTube where a couple was in a car fighting, got pulled over, and everything they were screaming at this police officer that pulled them over was, you don't have a right to do this, you don't have a right to do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I thought, you know, he's there, here's the code. He's there to enforce the code. He was actually just trying to make sure that the the female wasn't being beat up while they were driving along the road. And he kept telling the guys, hey, just give me her name and birth date. He already cleared the driver. So he said, just give me her name and birth date, and you guys can go on. And it was this 20-minute fight that took 4 cops. Both of them wound up arrested. And my thought was, they want to argue the law sitting on the side of the road.
Right.
If he's doing something he doesn't have a right to do, bring it up in court or go talk to an attorney.
Exactly.
But he's not there to fight with you on what your rights are, what his rights are, what the law is. He's going to say, under this code, you did this wrong, and this is what I need to do to clear it. It's a very narrow focus, and I think that's something that people don't understand anymore. They think it's like Judge Dredd, the movie, where, he goes
Judge,
out,
jury, and executioner, right.
Yeah, but pulls them over, and he takes care of the punishment right there, whether it's taking their life or money or throwing them in jail at that very moment, and that's not the way it is. And I think we've lost, I think the entire public sector has lost focus of that.
My buddy who I grew up with, who's been on this show, who's a retired NYPD detective, Joe once said when he was a patrol officer, and if he pulled over somebody and they started getting in his space, you don't have the right to ask me that, you don't have the right, he would say, can I see your law degree?
Yeah.
Right.
You're not a lawyer.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Well, the way you were talking to me, I thought you were a lawyer. So that changes the story right there.
But so many people are on the internet. It's like what do they say? I'm not an attorney, or I'm not a judge, but I play one on
TV. Yeah.
Yeah.
One on TV.
Or I slept at Holiday Inn last night. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, Rick, let's switch to your instructor hat. How many people would you say you've trained now?
Man, I don't even know. It's some ungodly number.
You need that clicker. Like when people are coming into a club, with the concert, you need to be the guy at the door with the clicker.
Have we hit the 6 digits yet?
The number that means the most to me, really, in all sincerity and honesty, and that I do keep track of, is the number of people, specifically women, that I give free shooting lessons to. And it's an annual program that I started 9 years ago when I saw a woman's lifeless body left discarded on the side of the road after she had been sexually raped, violated, and murdered.
Oh.
And I made it my passion to give free shooting lessons to women. And that first year, I gave 50 women a free shooting lesson. And that program has grown such that this upcoming August, I was initially going to do it back in May, week after Mother's Day, but we were under shutdown, right? I still have a bone to pick with the shutdown, but anyway, I moved it to the second Sunday in August on the 9th. That is where my goal is to train 1,000 women how to shoot a gun. Last year I did 814. This year I want to do 1,000. I want to give 1,000 women a free shooting lesson, free range safety briefing, one-on-one with a firearms trainer in booth, and just shoot and feel confident about this as an option. I'm like green eggs and ham. Sam, I am. Try it, you see. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. But if you do and you think that this is a potential solution for you, look, try it, and I'm glad to be the ambassador or the gateway that introduces you to this lifestyle and to this means of taking on a more active role in your personal protection and that of your family, including, your babies and your children.
I always love to use the example when sometimes I would get, when I was selling firearms, the guy comes in and he's got the SO with him, and she looks kind of timid. And I'd bring up a shooting class or something like that, an introductory kind of thing. And if she showed any interest at all, I'd say, look, go take it. She goes, I'm not really into guns. I said, how much shooting have you done? No, I don't do any of that. I said, then how do you know you don't like it? I said, every time if I have any interest in anything, a pottery class, cooking sushi, whatever it is, I go and take an introductory class. Yeah. I said, this is the same thing. You go, you try it. If you don't like it, fine. If you do like it, you move on. And so I said, all you're giving up is a Saturday. Uh-huh. You go, you have fun. They provide everything, and you'll find out if you're good at it. And I had one guy come back to me, and his SO wasn't with him this time, and he goes, "Thanks a lot." I said, "What?" He said, "My wife took the classes. Now she wants to go out shooting all the time, and she's shooting better than I do."
And that's a great story, man. And like I said, a lot. My favorite story concerns itself with my women's shooting event, and there was this lady who was visiting our great state from the state of Illinois, of all places, but she was visiting a Michiganian here locally who was already made plans to attend my free women's shooting event. And so this visitor from Illinois had a choice. They could stay at home, indoors and wait until this lady came back from this free shooting lesson, or she could tag along and sneer the entire time.
There you go.
She went to the event, and somehow someone coaxed her into getting into a booth one-on-one with an instructor. The gun was loaded up, and she shot it. And in just that one moment, we converted an anti-gunner into someone who loves guns and loves to shoot. So
there you go.
That's one of my favorite anecdotes. Green eggs and ham.
So we can call Rick Ector, the gateway drug to shooting.
I'd put that on a T-shirt.
Right. All I need is a great graphic to bring the point home, man.
Bullets.
There you go.
Bullet shells falling out of the side of a gun.
Man, if I could get a good artist to give me a good concept that'll render well in terms of an actual
we know
graphic,
a good artist. Yehuda does all that stuff.
Yeah, you know what I found with my logo, my Legally Armed in Detroit logo? It's the design and creativity of the designer, man.
Oh yeah.
You could give a guy a concept of what you want to convey, but until you get this vision or this inspiration behind this truly creative type who can bring something from a mere concept to real life, like my Laid logo, man, I love my Laid logo, and I get absolutely nothing but rave reviews about the design. And people ask me and say, well, how did you come up with it? I said, I didn't come up with it at all. I said, I know this really creative designer, and for some reason, I guess he had a weird dream one night, and he had this vision in his dream, and he woke up, and you know how you wake up, and well, this guy was smart. He obviously keeps a notepad next to his bed, and he kind of sketched out what he saw in his dream, and then he brought it to life and showed it to me, and asked me if I liked it, and I was like, yeah. He said, well, hey, do you want to buy it? And I was like, sure, and he was like, aren't you even going to ask me how much money I want for this? I was like, I don't care what you ask for it. It is that good. Whatever it is you want to sell it to me for, I will buy it. And he was like, man, see, that's why I love you. You are like the realest, most honest, forthright guy I know. He charged me quite a bit for it, but you know what? I ended up bartering free CPL classes for friends and family members, so it didn't hurt too much.
And if it brings you in business, you got value out of it.
The thing about it too, man, just by having an identity associated with a logo, and it is so awesome that, when I put it on T-shirts and sweatshirts and other paraphernalia like hats, I mean, they sell like hotcakes, man. So it was just a no-brainer all the way around. And I say all that to say this, if you want T-shirts and other, embroidered or, customized gear to sell, man, it takes a really great visionary and artist who can take a concept that that you didn't even give him, and just creates your corporate brand identity that people just see it and fall in love with, right on the spot.
Right. That's right.
And I give it up to those creative types, because if you gave it to me, I probably would have just drew like a gun and a holster or something and try to come up with some lame catchphrase. But legally armed in Detroit, and that logo. And then he came up with some brand new concept logos to feminize the logo, along with feminizing the figure in the character. And I haven't made these publicly, known yet, but I'm going to unveil them soon. And I imagine that they're going to be as hot or even hotter than my original Laid logo when it launches.
I'm sure they will. And so now we're talking, you're teaching 14 years, right?
Yeah, man. I've been teaching, about 13, 14 years, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. In the number of years that you've been teaching, you've taken a lot of professional development classes. Who inspired you as an instructor?
As an instructor, man, and let's see, there's a lot of people that are out there, man, but the guy that I will say that has overall inspired me was a guy who did spend some time as an instructor, but I think he has more distinguished himself and his place in the gun rights community more as a gun rights advocate, and that would be our mutual friend Kenn Blanchard, man.
Kenn's a great guy.
I remember listening to his podcast, man, and I wouldn't miss an episode. And there was this one particular episode where he was issuing a clarion call for people to come out to this gun rights policy conference that was being held in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky that year. And I made it my business to solicit some friends to drive with me to go down there. On the day of travel, my friends all came up with lame excuses as to why they couldn't go. I jumped in a car by myself and drove by myself all the way down there to a conference I had never been to. Didn't know a single gun rights advocate ever, right? And so I went there being the guy that probably the only person that didn't know at least one other person there. And I found Kenn, introduced myself, and I must have followed him around the conference the entire weekend. And then eventually, to his credit, once he figured out I wasn't some weirdo or something, he decided to take pity on me and be my friend, man. And I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest associations I've had in the gun rights community.
No, he's a good guy.
He is a good guy.
We've been friends almost 10 years now, and I've only met him in person twice. And the second time was in September.
Man, he is like one of the greatest guys, greatest mentors, firearms instructors, public speakers, you name it, he's done it.
Pastor, former Marine, former cop.
I mean, you name it, he's done it, man. And he, as I was trying to figure out my place in the gun rights movement, I was like literally following him and his every move until I figured out where I wanted to distinguish myself and where I wanted to make my mark, and following him all those years, definitely gave me a good firm footing and grounding in terms of what it means to be in the gun rights movement. And then once I figured out how I wanted to make my mark, man, I was able to do that rather effortlessly. And you know what? I've actually brought him into some projects I've been working on and to get him involved, and vice versa. Whenever he has something interesting coming up and he thinks that I could add, cachet or, a great spin on an event he's doing, he'll pull me in. So it's just been a great association knowing that guy, man.
One thing I will tell you, what I know about Kenn, I guarantee you he didn't think you were a weirdo. Because everybody who meets Kenn has the desire to want to follow him around.
I literally followed him that whole weekend.
The first time I met him was at SHOT Show in 2014. Okay, Greg was not there that year.
Okay.
And my wife was off busy doing something at a women's event. And I must have gone to 4 different booths with Kenn. Just I followed him along. I'm behind him on my scooter. He's walking around, and I'm rolling next to him, talking to him. And I said, "You don't mind if I tag along with you, do you?" And he says, "Nah, man, this is great. I'm glad we finally got to meet." And we were talking. We go over to the Colt booth. And I'm giving them caca for not re-releasing the double-action revolvers. This was 6 years ago. So 6 years later, what have they done? They started re-releasing double-action revolvers. So the other day, he messaged me, and he says, "Hey, Doc, did you buy your new Python yet?" And I said, "I beat you to it, brother." And I sent him a picture of me holding the 2 of them up, the 1976 and the 2020 right next to each other. And he was like, "Man," he says, "I got to come visit you in Arizona." I said, "You were here in September. You didn't want to stay over. You were busy. You had to get back."
Well, I'm going to tell you, I went to GRPC in Arizona, man, and you know what? It was my first time in that state, man. I'll say one thing. It was hot.
Yes. September's still
The
pretty
one
hot
thing
here.
you guys have in abundance, it was hot. Even in the fall, it was hot.
Well, see, you don't understand. In Arizona, there's only 2 seasons. Summer and not summer. And you were here during summer.
And summer's generally 8 months long.
Right. Not summer is November, December, January, and February. From March,
that was GRPC, so that's late. That's late September, man.
That's still summer here.
It was unbearable hot and humid.
This is why you don't go out of the hotel.
And I spent a lot of time in the hotel,
That's
man.
right,
But
we all did.
I'll tell you what, it was very nice in the evening. And you know what? I don't think you guys have a mosquito problem in the desert.
We do.
I think it's too hot. I think it's too hot for mosquitoes.
No. We do. The problem is we have these big giant suckers that when you have the electric bug zappers, they fly into it and it goes like there's a short in the current. But all kidding aside, that was the first time we met in person, and I saw you coming towards me, and I said to my wife, "This is Rick Ector, watch."
Right. And it was actually me and not somebody else, right?
Exactly. It was you.
Good. Because I'll tell you, every now and then, I'll tell you some of the most funniest interactions I have is someone will come running up to me and they'll say, "Oh, man, it's so great to finally meet you. Oh, man."
Well, was that Kevin Sona?
No, it wasn't Kevin Sona, but, Kevin's a great guy,
He
man.
is a wonderful guy.
Side story, I actually went down in February before all this lockdown business at his gun rights event that he had. And
right,
it was a great
he went to his camping event, yeah.
I had never gone camping, let alone in winter, right? And it was really cold, but the daytime temperatures recovered. But going back to this guy who thought he knew me, who was shaking my hand and asking for an autograph, it kind of hurt me inside to tell him that I wasn't Coleon Noir.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
A little bit of me inside died that, okay, this guy did not know me, but since he thought it was Coleon, I was like, okay, well.
Hey, sign it and thank him,
I started to do that just so he could have a great Coleon Noir story, man. But I would hate for him to start showing his picture around. They're like, "No, man, that's that rabble rouser from Detroit, Michigan you got." Right.
No, what would have worked out perfect was he would have signed it Rick Ector and then underneath the real Coleon Noir. That would have got Coleon saying, "Who the heck's this Rick Ector guy?"
Right, but it's funny though. I tell you, that's one of my more priceless stories in this whole gun rights movement, man. But I tell you, one of the great things that I really dig about it, man, is that I'm constantly meeting really cool people every single time. Every time I go to GRPC, it's always good to see all the friends that you made all the previous years at GRPC. I've probably been to GRPC maybe 7 times total, but I think I'm on a 5-year continuous string now. And it's always good, man. And you see all those friends, and we all do the sit and listen to all the great speakers who are presenting, and
people we know, people we're
the
friends
people
with.
you know. And then there's the new people you're going to meet this time around, and like I said, it's just great.
Yeah, it's a great event, and I'm hoping one of these days I get asked to speak. I may or may not. I have something that I sent to Alan about, veterans engagement. We'll see if he asks me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If he does, I will.
Okay.
I have something for AMCOM, but I'm really working with Amanda and Cheryl to see what I can do. It goes back to my teaching background as a high school teacher, and I had this conversation with Charlie Cook, another great high school teacher. Of course, we both have taught music at different times, but more recently, until the end of my teaching career, I taught history, and explaining to people what the history of, firearms rights denial, how do you can't really make a joke about stuff like that. My whole thing is standing up in a classroom, and I was taught you have to entertain the kids or else you're going to lose their attention, because you've only got them for 42 minutes in a day, and you've got to make an impact. So what I try to do is I try to squeeze that down into 8 minutes.
Well, I'll tell you, it doesn't necessarily matter how long the engagement necessarily is, whether it's 8 minutes or 45 minutes. The one thing that I really loved about getting my initial firearm credential certification through the NRA, man, is that they're really big on what they call TPI, total participant involvement, in which you truly engage your students, and it's the foundation of their teaching methodology. And if you can master TPI, using examples from real world experiences, your own personal experiences relating the known to the unknown and all the other strategies that they talk about, man, it will automatically make you a better public speaker.
Yes.
Which is one of the great things about, taking the training through the NRA, is that whole first module, that whole first day of training that you're doing, it's all devoted towards making you an effective speaker.
Right. Well, Charlie went the other way. He joined Toastmasters.
Well, that's another route. I haven't tried it, but it's been on my list to do it, and I've been following his foray. And you know what? I may just do it, may not do it, but we all can get better, man. I feel that I'm an effective speaker.
There's always a way to get better, no matter how good you are. So, but to that end, what's the worst situation you have ever had to deal with in a class?
In a class, worse. I've been fortunate. I haven't had a lot of bad situations. I've had some embarrassing situations. Like I had this one woman that showed up to my ladies' free training event who obviously had something to taste earlier that day or didn't sleep it all off the night before, and having that unpleasant conversation after segregating her from the general populace in the training session. Hey, I don't know if you've been drinking, but I can smell it, and that's not a good look for you or for the event we're trying to do, and I'm going to have to unfortunately ask you to leave. I've had a couple of students over the years who didn't treat the firearm with the reverence that it
and the respect.
deserves.
Right.
They thought it was a big joke when the gun discharged, and they wanted to jump out the booth and start engaging in histrionics, and like it was a big joke. And I just said, look, you're done, just bye, you're done. There's no way you're going to pass, and I don't even want you in my class for the rest of the duration of the class. Just go,
Yeah.
And so, you have those unfortunate, incidents, and, it's always important. Oh, I'll tell you another one I had. Now that I think of it, there was this guy who was in the class, and unbeknownst to me, he was having these ongoing outbursts and conversations with himself that led people who were in the class next to him to believe that he was, suffering from some type of mental condition. And some people brought that to my attention. And again, I am not afraid to address uncomfortable situations. And I pulled him off to the side, and I was like, look, you're having outbursts, and the things that you're saying, they are rather disturbing, and that they're frightening people, and you are a disruption to my class. So I'm relieving you of any obligation you may feel to remain here, but I don't want you in the remainder of this class, And those are some of the most, and I'll tell you, I don't relish telling people, hey, I'm booting you out of the class. I'll do it as diplomatically as possible. I will reduce the embarrassment by pulling you off to the side and do it publicly outside of the classroom. But at the end of the day, I'm responsible for what happens in that classroom, and I own that. Nothing bad is going to happen on my watch. No one is going to knowingly have some type of condition that they exhibited in my class and go out and do something dangerous or heinous out in the community, and then have people say, well, Rick trained them. Rick probably saw what was going on with that guy, and Rick didn't do anything about it. It won't be because I didn't address it, and I don't have a problem with taking an unpopular stand or, earning the ire or wrath of a particular individual because I did the right thing.
Now, you got involved because you dealt with a situation yourself, as we discussed the last time you were on with us. What do you say to victims who come to seek your advice and training after they've been through a tumultuous event?
Well, the one thing that I do when I start the class off, you start off with an introduction, and I make sure that I can and let them know that I can truly relate to them. And I share my story, about being robbed at gunpoint in my own driveway, and what my mindset was before, and how I took ownership of my personal safety and what I did in the aftermath. And, there are some people that think, it's probably not the coolest thing in the world to make yourself vulnerable to your students and say, hey, this guy that's perceived as being this uber tough firearms guy, aficionado, trainer, who will just come out and say, hey, I'm probably no different than you are, but I probably had it worse than you. And, sometimes that's true and sometimes it's not, because I've had some real horror stories relayed to me by some people who've taken my class. But, I'll make myself vulnerable, say, hey, look, I was robbed at gunpoint in my own driveway, and I had no idea if I was going to survive.
Yeah.
I can make that statement and show people what I did in the aftermath of that to make sure that I'm never in that situation again. And if so, there will most assuredly be a different result.
Rick, do you find that people are when they join the class after being a victim of some sort of crime, do they have kind of that Dirty Harry mentality from Hollywood, or are they more want to make sure it never happens to them again?
I've never seen anyone that has previously been a crime victim have a Dirty Harry, I want to exact some vengeance, get even type of mindset. I think I've seen the mindset that I exhibited, which is, look, maybe I had my heads in the clouds, and maybe I didn't realize that the community was as dangerous as it was. Maybe I was naive to think that if I just went to work and came home and didn't be out clubbing and partying all night long and drinking to excess, that nothing bad would happen to me. And they see that, and when I share my story, they can identify with that, and there's a certain level of genuineness and authenticity I think it lends to me too. Not only because I actually went through that experience, because I'm being transparent about it, and I'm telling you that if I can go from being at that station in life and go through the training and dedicate myself to ensuring that it never happens again, that you can do it too. I don't hold myself out to be some, macho stud with a gun that, should have his own action figure or TV show. I'm just here to let you know that if I can do it, you can do it.
Oh man, that would be great if you had your own TV show, man. That would be a blast. That would be a blast.
Hey man, write me a pilot episode. Who knows? We might get somebody to bite, man. I don't know.
So it's more of an awakening thing where and I'm sure you go into awareness training as far as watching your surroundings and stuff like that. So,
definitely. Yeah. That's a huge part of it, man. Because just that training alone, if someone did it some justice, could really be a standalone seminar in of itself, man. Just call it awareness training, and just being in the moment and surveying your environment. And I call it, I compare it to Sesame Street when I teach classes. And it's that game in Sesame Street that people play. It's called One of These Things.
Yep.
Where you have 4 items, 3 of them are loosely related, and there's this one thing that's odd. Well, I say that one thing that's odd and doesn't match the other 3. That's like being in an environment and something is out of place.
Right.
Just doesn't make sense.
I'll give you an example. My wife and I were going to do some Christmas shopping. It was about 2 weeks before Christmas, and we went to the local mall. And we get out. You have to park like in the back 40. And so we get out of our car, and we're walking towards the mall. The 3-mile hike. And I notice a guy walking in front of us, and he's wearing all black clothing, and he's got gloves on. Now, gloves in December isn't that obviously in most parts of the country is not unusual. However, this was California, and it was about 75 degrees out.
Right, and it definitely didn't make sense.
I looked a little more closely at the gloves, and they had a big, thick pad on the back. They're called SAP gloves. Mm-hmm. They're meant for breaking through glass and hurting people.
Oh,
and so I calmly followed behind this guy. Oh, and he kept looking into every car as he walked past it. Okay. And so I went into the mall and I found a security guard and said, "You might want to check this out." And I went back over to the door, and I honestly did not know that this mall's had on duty that many security guards. They swarmed out of the mall like it was a beehive. And they had this guy within minutes. They had this guy, and sure enough, he'd been breaking into cars and stealing Christmas packages. And so but it was something. It was one of those things. If I had been looking at my phone, or if I had been BSing with my wife and not paying attention to what was going on around me, I never would have seen him. He would have just cleaned out as much as he could carry, and been gone. So
and once you really get into it, man, it's really a habit at first that you have to develop. But once you develop it, it's like you can't not do it after a while.
You're right. You can't turn it off.
Yeah, you can't turn it off.
I attended a Zoom class not long ago on just this very topic.
Okay.
And after about 20 minutes, I said was doing it with my wife. My wife looked at me and said, "You should be teaching this class."
Okay.
And she got up and left the office and said, "I'm going to go do something with the dog if you want to sit here." But I wanted to see the rest of the class. So it's given me the mentality. And like you, Rick, I got NRA certifications. And at one time I taught a class called Refuse to be a Victim, which is one of the NRA's best classes.
Okay.
And most of the people that take the Choose to Be a Victim are seniors or people with a disability. And at the time I was still teaching this class, I was walking with a cane.
Okay.
And, you know, one person said to me, "What can you teach me? You're handicapped too." And I said, "Well, attack me." And he was like, "What?" And I said, "Attack me. Since you say you know so much, attack me."
Right.
And he says, "Oh, you're going to do some chop suey karate on me." I said, "You've got a big mouth." Clap my hands like this. "You've got a big mouth.
Right.
Attack me." So he took a swing at me, and I did a very simple Aikido arm lock. And I said, "That's martial arts." I said, "Let me show you what street fighting is." I said, "Do it again." So he took the swing again, and this time I swung my cane like it was a bolo. And I had the handle of the cane in his throat. And I said, "See what the difference is?"
Right.
I said, "I can block you, or I can counterattack your attack." But those are just some of the things. By the end of the class, I had like 6 people begging me for private lessons. I said, "I don't give private lessons."
Okay.
I said, because if I gave private lessons, I would get 3 hours of sleep a night. Quite honestly, I don't get much more than that right now anymore anyway. But I wanted to talk guns with you before we let you get out of here. But we're at the point where I have to, and I just remembered it, because I had that little note, you know, these little lovely Post-it notes that my wife bought for me. I don't know, she must have had them made because they're different cutouts of different firearms. So she must have had them made for me, especially. Anyway, this one, and it's a 1911 Post-it note, and on it, it says, "Remind Rick that your mutual friend said hi." Now, Rick, we have a mutual friend that knows you from your previous life that retired here to Arizona and works out in my gym. And the two used to work together. And he brought your name up to me when I told him what I did. And I said, "Yeah, I know Rick." I said, "I've had him on my show." So the gentleman is very tall and skinny with long black hair. I don't want to say his name on the air. But he told me to tell you, tell my friend Rick I said hello.
Well, okay. Consider the message delivered, man.
There you go. Okay. So let's get to guns. Do you recommend different firearms for different individual students? Or if a student comes to you after they've taken maybe your free class or any of your regular training classes, and they say to you, "Okay, I'm ready to buy a gun. What do I get?" I
have a very interesting process that I use, man. I don't recommend specifically any particular gun or model or style. I basically will take a student to a gun range. And usually I do this, like, especially when I do this on a consultation. And we'll go to a range, and basically we'll just have the salesperson just empty out a wide variety of guns and put them on top of the counter. And the only requirement that I give the salesperson is that they're at least 9mm or higher.
Right.
And essentially through process of elimination, I have this student go through a round-robin elimination process by picking up a gun and seeing which one feels good and fits their hand best.
Okay, but the $900 SIG is not going to be for the first time gun owner.
It's not even, I'm not even paying attention to manufacturer names or,
I just threw that out there because
the latest 3-color ads in magazines.
Yeah, I just threw it out because when I bought my first SIG, it was $800 and some odd because I had to have the special competition edition
Mhm.
that came in the aluminum case
Mhm.
with the 21-round magazines.
Okay.
And Greg's laughing there up his sleeve while he's muted because he knows what I'm talking about. Because the same model gun,
I haven't muted.
the same model gun was sold to the U.S. Army as the M17 for $432 a unit. And I had to get the one that was twice as much. Same model, it was twice as much money.
Yeah, but unless you're going to buy 22 million of them, you can't get that price.
Exactly. And I wasn't planning on buying 22 million of them. Do you
Just
recommend...
by process of elimination, 9mm and
9mm or higher.
Then we take it to the next level of elimination. Then we actually take those 3 guns into the shooting booth, and I give that person the same standard shooting advice, marksmanship advice, to shoot at a target, and we see which one they shoot best. And that's how I determine what gun is best for you. And sometimes it's a Glock. Sometimes it's a Smith & Wesson. Sometimes it's one of those high-end guns, man. But I don't buy into any one particular gun as being the best gun for everyone. Now, I'm probably talking some sponsors out of giving me a ton of money to blindly, and endorse.
You don't get paid for common sense, Rick.
I got news for you. Gaston's not giving any money away. So you don't have to worry about that.
There's probably a market out there for people who have sufficient status and notoriety and publicity to get an endorsement deal, man. But, I'm going to stick core to my principles. I believe that just going through that process, minimum caliber, and it fits your hand. It fits your hand like a glove. It feels good and it feels natural, and you shoot it well. Then we can start debating all the other things that are not necessarily as important, like ammo capacity count of the magazines, and whether it's double action, striker fired, all that other stuff. We can have that debate from here until kingdom come, man. I just want to make sure I got the basics covered.
Right. No, I agree with you. And I have the same conversation with people who come to me. And, but they look at me being somebody in the industry. When I run my preparedness group, they want to see what I have on my hip or under my shoulder. And they want to know what my reasoning is. So I tell them I carry a $300 gun. What I own in my safe that I drool over is different than what I carry on the street. And Greg will tell you, well, Greg, why is that? We talk about it all the time. Because if the cop tells you, put that gun on the ground and kick it over to me, I ain't kicking a $900 SIG on the ground.
Everybody always thought I was a Glock fanboy because my daily carry gun is a Glock, and I can't remember who brought it up first, and I told them, no, it's so that when a police officer yells drop the gun, I don't care. It's the ugliest gun ever made, so I just drop it, and it's no big deal. I'm not, if it's my Browning high power that was made in Belgium, I'm not dropping it. He can shoot me, so that's the way that goes.
Well, this is why I carry $300 guns. Smith & Wesson SD9VE, Ruger Security 9 Compact, Ruger LC9S, because they're inexpensive guns that work well and function, and you only need to do the minimum amount of upgrades, a trigger job, sometimes a trigger replacement, usually a trigger job. I like to put True Glow night sights, Wolf springs, and an Apex trigger on whatever I'm carrying. But that's it. It's a $300 gun with those limited upgrades, and I can shoot 1-inch groups.
Okay.
And that's all you need to do. Now, what are your favorite guns to carry?
Oh, man, a Glock 17, man, all day.
There you go.
See?
Rick said
And
it,
there's
Glock 17.
gonna be some purists out there. There's gonna be some folks out there. They're gonna be, oh my God, not the plastic gun, not the Glock. Hey, it's functional. It gets the job done. Hey, you know
Well,
what?
That's it.
our buddy gun writer Dwayne Thomas totally agrees with you, and he went from 1911 to Beretta to Glock in the space of a writing career as a carry
And there's
gun.
a whole bunch of people out there. It's either 1911 or nothing.
Well,
If that's the gun that excites you, that's the gun that you shoot well with, that's the gun that you practice with, by all means, go for it, own it, shoot it, have a shrine dedicated to it. Just carry the doggone thing. Just carry it.
Well, I was one of those people. I have 3 Colts. 2 of them were competition, and 1 was an Army carry gun. And I've come full circle, and I now have a Rock Island 9mm 1911, 17+1, and it also takes another caliber called 22 TCM, which exceeds 2,000 feet per second.
Okay.
And that's the super hot round, but either way, it's a neck down 9mm that pushes a 40 grain bullet. But by the same token, regular U.S. Army tanker or pilot's shoulder rig with the 5-inch 1911, but I won't carry that gun every day because it's $1,700. $700. When did I carry it? I carried it on Saturdays during synagogue on my security team because it was a gun that carried well in a shoulder holster. Even in the middle of the summer, I can wear a button-down short-sleeve shirt open with a t-shirt underneath, and my job being sitting in a wheelchair when people walk in the door is for them, they're going to greet me, I'm going to greet them, I'm going to hug them. And the rabbi's wife said to me, I notice you hug everybody who comes in the door. Why? And I said, well, even though I may know them, Robin, I'm checking them for hidden firearms and explosives. And she went, oh, really? You know how to do that? And I said, I just told you how I do it.
Well, for most people, you probably can. I'm one of those guys that carries, IWB up front, so you probably won't touch mine.
No, but I'll still feel it when you hug me. I'm gonna know you have it. You're gonna touch my, not what we're trying to have a physical relationship, but you're gonna touch my stomach. I'm gonna know you have a gun. But I'm not worried about you. You'd be an honored guest. Anyway, before we let you get out of here, and we really appreciate you staying with us a little extra time tonight, please tell everybody how they can get in touch with you in the state of Michigan or otherwise for shooting instruction, consultation, so on and so forth, how to attend a class with you.
Oh, very easy. My name is Rick, R-I-C-K, last name Ector, E-C-T-O-R. My email address is detroitccw@gmail.com. My YouTube channel is Detroit CCW under Rick Ector. Over 2,200 videos I've put out there to edify, educate, and train fellow gun owners.
Got a ton of stuff up there.
A lot of gun rights advocacy stuff. My biggest pet project, as we talked about today, is the free shooting lesson that I give to women. And the second Sunday on the 9th, of the 9th of August, I'm going to train. My goal is to train 1,000 women how to load, discharge, and operate a firearm. And if you believe in my project, I would invite you all to consider kindly to make a donation to this program. I need a lot of personal protection equipment, especially in this post-COVID environment that we find ourselves in. I need to have a lot of extra stuff that I usually don't need. But if you would consider making a donation, I'm over at Cash App at $Rick Ector, R-I-C-K-E-C-T-O-R, or you can do it old school with PayPal. info@detroitccw.com.
Hey, Rick, do me a favor. Send me a list of the stuff you need for August 9th.
Yes, sir. I will definitely do that.
Let me ring some people up. I can't be there because I'll be coming back from a wedding in upstate New York. I'll probably be, while you're teaching that class, I'll be flying into Chicago Midway from Albany International in upstate New York. But I want to see if I can help you get some stuff going. We'll use the power of the podcast to help you get some stuff going for this.
Hey, man, I definitely appreciate that, for real. You know, I truly believe in this project, man, this program. And, the most satisfying thing I get out of it is when I'll get several women who will just come to me. They'll search me out and find me after they shoot, and they just grab my hand and they shake it profusely, and they just look at me over and over again and say, thank you, thank you. Oh, this is truly an amazing event that you've done, and I'm glad that you do it. And man, and it's like they're like looking at me like, I wish I could give you something, and I'm like, no, you helped me just by being here and learning how to shoot.
And how many of them say to you, I didn't think I could do it?
Quite a few do, man. Quite a few do, man. And that's what makes it all the more worthwhile, man, is that you had a challenge or a fear and you decided to face it, and you did, and you overcame it, and you prevailed, man. I mean, that's like the basic all-American story that exists in literature and the movies, man, distilled down to just one statement.
There you go. It's Top Gun and 12 Strong all in one movie.
Okay. It's that same plot line. It exists in every movie. It's like if you ever watch a brand new movie at the theater and you're like, man, it seems like I've seen this film before. I'm like, yeah, you have. It's just different actors released in a different year by a different studio, but it's the same story over and over again. After a while, you would think that movies would get boring because you already know how the story is going to go, right?
But it doesn't matter. They keep doing it anyway, you would think. Rick, thanks so much for coming on tonight. We really appreciate it.
Gentlemen, thank you all very much for extending me an invitation and access to your audience. I had fun, man, and you always have fun. I enjoyed it.
For the second time, you had fun. We're glad you came, man. Thanks so much.
All right, guys. Take care and have a great one.
All right. God bless.
You too.
Have a good night. All right. Well, Rick Ector, the top firearms trainer in the state of Michigan and Second Amendment activist. We're always glad to have him. He does a every Thursday night with Bill Frady on Lock and Load Radio called Planet Rick. So he's joining us tonight right after that segment. So, he's like the Energizer. He's like the Energizer buddy in our industry, Greg. Just wind him up and he keeps going.
And you can hear it in his voice. I mean, he has a lot of commitment to his training and the people that he is putting through the classes. And I'm really glad to see kind of along the lines of Black Guns Matter. They're getting this to people that really need protection, not just want it, but actually need to have it, and may have been misinformed in the past on the availability to them.
Right. Well, Rick is doing it in Detroit, and Maj is traveling around the country working with smaller groups, but they're doing the same thing. And, we mentioned Kenn Blanchard. Kenn Blanchard started it, and Kenn Blanchard was very involved with an organization called 2AO that our buddy Ace Luciano was part of, which I was briefly part of as well. So totally understand. We're trying to bring the Second Amendment to people who didn't think they had the right.
Exactly. And I think that by comparison, anybody compared to Rick is working with smaller groups. I don't think anybody is doing bigger groups than Rick is.
No, because that's what he does. He did 814 last year. He's trying to get 1,000 this year.
One class, 1,000 people. I mean, that's absolutely amazing.
We're going to send him, Greg. We're going to send him a donation from the podcast, but we're also going to send him a supply that he needs. And I think I know one thing that he's going to need that I have a ton of are health safety earplugs.
Yeah.
Because I had gotten an order of about 500 of them 2 years ago. So I'm going to send him 100 of our green earplugs.
He can definitely use those.
Yeah. Okay, lots of industry news. We're going to run through it a little faster than normal because we're running a little late, and I promised Greg that from now on we try to keep the shows to 2 hours so he doesn't lose his breath or his voice.
I'm actually doing pretty good tonight, so that's
all right.
We should be able to cover it all.
Then I'll slow down. If you are a disabled shooter like me, and you would like to shoot a match or a series of matches designed by fellow disabled shooters at the Sig Sauer Academy in Epping, New Hampshire, hosted by Sig and the organization Learn to Shoot Again, which helps shooters who became disabled continue shooting. And the lead host ambassador for this event is none other than our friend and my fellow former Army helicopter pilot, Trevor Balcom. And he is the only 7-discipline Grandmaster shooter who is wheelchair bound. Due to a shoot down 10 years ago in Afghanistan and paralysis, Trevor has been in a wheelchair ever since. He does have an exoskeleton that does get him up and walking these days. But primarily he's still, I would say 80% chair bound. And Trevor is very involved in this organization, Learn to Shoot Again. And if you visit adaptiveshoot.com, all one word, for more info, and we will do a podcast on this in the near future. But this is going to be in late October or middle October in Epping, New Hampshire. And I may not be able to go this year, but I will definitely go in future years if it continues. I'm going to try to get there this year, though, because this looks like my kind of people, and I need to be, I need to shoot. I haven't shot a match other than 22 in forever. And I need to shoot a centerfire pistol match that's set up for the disabled. So, adaptiveshoot.com. And let me look at my notes here, and I could tell you exactly when it is. It is. Okay, it is the 23rd and the 24th of October in Epping, New Hampshire, the 6 Sauer Academy. Beautiful facility. I've only been there once, but it's a gorgeous facility. I was there about 5 years ago. Moving ahead, Speer has released the new Gold Dot G2 carry ammo for compact handguns. 9mm 135 grain plus P, 40 S&W 165 grain plus P, and 45 ACP 200 grain plus P are the 3 loads.
I'm so glad that Speer got into this specialty ammo for compact handguns. It's a great manufacturer to have in the race.
Yeah, I have I got 200 rounds of the Gold Dot carry, but G2, but it's not for the compact, so I have to get a hold of some of the compact stuff in 9mm. Smith & Wesson has introduced the Performance Center Shield EZ series, and literally the week after my wife gets her Shield EZ.
That's one of those situations where you hope the FFL that sold the gun to you will allow you to trade it back in if you haven't shot it, so that you can get the one step up.
Well, she hasn't shot hers yet, and I
good.
don't want to show it to my neighbor Judith because she is going to see this one and she's going to want the one with the gold accents.
Oh, of course.
So I prefer the silver, quite honestly. I'll get mine. It'll be the silver. It's the black and silver. MSRP is $588. Expect to see it closer to about $530.
Oh, wow.
In the stores. Larry Vickers. Everybody knows who Larry Vickers is. I've got a Vickers Blue Force sling. In fact, I've got a few of them. Has released the Vickers Guide to SIG Firearms, Volume 1. And it goes all the way back to when SIG was first founded as a German and Swiss arms maker in the 1750s, all the way to now.
They've been making weapons for a long time.
And they were making wagons for a while, too.
Yeah.
Taurus has introduced the new G3C series pistol. And the MSRP, this is great if you're on a budget, $306. So you should be able to find that for about $270 in the store.
That's fantastic.
Maybe even a little less. Since it's Father's Day this weekend, you want to get out and get into the gun stores. You may even find that at $269. So when you're done with the transfer and the tax, it'll be around $300. The ATF,
300 guns that can protect you.
That's right, and that function. The ATF is going after arm braces again. Representative Matt Gaetz, who represents Western Florida, the Panhandle, and is the man who, part of Western Florida, he is the man who says that he represents more military constituents in his district than any other district in the United States. And with the exception of Hawaii, I have a tendency to agree with him. He's introducing a bill to restrict the ATF from banning the arm brace.
Well, we've already done this dance. I mean, if it was going to go, they should have done it back when this was originally handled. Now that they approved it, and it was let ride for a long time, it's going to be a lot harder to go back and say, oh, we really want to go ahead.
Well, you could stop any more from being made, but what are you going to do? Collect every one that's been sold?
Yeah, there's 700,000 of them out there. I mean, it's one of the few things that, I even have one.
So do I.
It's, they're all over the place. In fact, a lot of times you can't buy an AR pistol without that being part of it. So,
well, I bought mine without it, but I added it. I bought an SB tactical brace for my 9mm AR pistol.
Yeah.
Okay, why didn't the SCOTUS take any 2A cases? Is Justice John Roberts the reason? POTUS has made it a campaign issue. Which means as soon as RBG kicks the bucket from all her illnesses, since she's the oldest liberal on the court, Trump will put a justice in there that will swing it firmly right, 6-3, for the next generation.
And I don't think it has anything to do with any one justice, Bill. SCOTUS has constantly turned down any case that reviews the Second Amendment. They know it's a losing fight. They know that no matter what they rule, they're going to be hated by half the country. And it's just easier to say that doesn't make the grade. You haven't put up an argument that we're willing to discuss and rule on. And so I think historically, I haven't done the numbers yet, but historically, I think if you go back and look, you'll find that 2A cases are not heard by SCOTUS very often.
No, they're really not. I mean, in the last 20 years, we had, Heller.
Right.
And McDonald, and that's it.
So this is just is standard operating procedure for them.
And that was when Scalia was still on the court, and he really, he and Roberts really forced the issue. Not Roberts, excuse me. Him and Clarence Thomas really forced the issue. And Thomas said, "What are you all afraid of? What are you, sissies?"
Yeah, we've had it this way for how long? Since 1787.
I would say Thomas is probably the most conservative justice on the court right now, since Scalia passed away.
I wish we could have cloned Scalia.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he has a son. He's he's working in the Trump administration right now as the labor secretary.
Well, maybe we can get an appointment there.
Gene Scalia. Winchester has won a $38 million. Let me do that in my Mike Myers. $38 million ammunition contract for the DoD for CQB, frangible CQB, and CQB training ammo.
And just for people that aren't familiar, this is ammunition that when you're using it indoors, as the close quarter battle CQB teams do and SWAT teams do, they practice with this stuff because as soon as it hits an object, it breaks apart. And most of it is made from non-lead materials, so it doesn't pollute the environment. And yeah, so it's this is a good thing for private shooters also, because now you can train with this exact same ammo. If you want to do, some people I know like to do close-up drills, and most people don't feel comfortable using full lead bullets to hit something that's only 8 feet, 12 feet away. So with this, you can hit when you hit your steel targets or anything that's solid, they come apart and
all body
are
armor,
much less likely to hurt you.
All body armor.
Yeah. Okay. Any body armor will stop these cold. I mean, they'll just come apart. Spoiler alert.
This is my favorite story of tonight's show. A Virginia grandmother is suing the state of Virginia over the 1 gun a month ration law.
You know what I like about it, Bill? Once you say grandma, the mainstream media shuts down, because they know no matter how they spin it, no matter how they try to label this, they are not going to be able to make grandma look like a FUD, and they're not going to be able to make her look like the evil black gun owner, no matter what she wants.
Exactly. And I forwarded this to our friend Lynn Finch, who runs the Facebook page Take Back Virginia, and she said, "Yeah, I know, I saw it. It's hysterical. That could easily be me."
Of course it could.
Now, mind you, not 1 gun a month if you don't have a state concealed carry permit, which is the law in Arizona. If you don't have a permit, you can only buy 1 gun a month. It's 1 gun a month no matter what.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, if you were to say get some sort of big avalanche of money at some point, or even a big tax return, and you wanted to go out and buy an AR and buy your wife a pistol and buy yourself a new pistol, that would take 3 months in Virginia, no matter what.
Right.
They have to wait 3 months, and I mean, you could buy them all at once, but they can't release them to you except 1 per month, and that's what Grandma is fighting.
And more
I
power.
really hope she
and
can
more
make some
power
noise.
to Grandma.
Yes.
Okay, the National Shooting Sports Foundation taking their estimate of the first 4 months of the new year and the last 2 months of 2019. So from November 1st, 2019 through April 30th of 2020, there are at least 2.6 million new gun owners.
That's not new guns sold. That's people that did not own a gun and now own a gun.
And in some of those cases, they own more than one. Because they don't live in Virginia and they don't have to wait to buy one a month.
You happen to know some of these people. This is your time to shine. I mean, I think we're usually talking to experienced gun owners and shooters on the podcast. And this is where you could say, hey, would you like to, go shooting with me? I could show you some things, teach you how to handle it better. And when you pass along that knowledge, you not only make them more competent, but you make them feel more comfortable being a part of our community.
Right. So, our friends at Franklin Armory have released new binary triggers for the 9mm AK platform and, drum roll please, the binary trigger for the Ruger 1022 and Charger 22 platforms.
You gonna pick one up, Bill?
Yeah, it's not that expensive.
What are they running? Do you know?
I know. I was told not to say because my price is different than MSRP.
What do you know the MSRP on it?
No, they have not posted it yet. The release date, the actual release, is in 3 days.
Oh, okay. Well, so we'll have it soon.
Well, the release is Monday. It's either Sunday or Monday.
And therefore, in your stores very soon. Be on the lookout for that Franklin Armory binary.
Yep. And the video I watched was amazing. I mean, it looks like it's 400 rounds a minute. If I coupled that trigger system with the GSG 110 round drum for the Ruger 1022, that's just outrageous.
Could be formidable.
Very. Okay, time for emails. And we are introducing a new feature on the emails. Starting this week with this week for emails and messages, Greg and I will choose one that will be our email or message of the week. And that person will win one of our new Firearms Chat Podcast Velcro patches and whatever else I decide to pull out of my swag box from many, many years of SHOT Shows and other events. So 1 month,
which are books and keychains and patches
and pens and notepads and all kinds of stuff, catalogs, and so that message this week, Peter S. Writes, I bought a new Sauer XT rifle in .308. The bolt keeps jamming when trying to load the cartridge forward and will not close at times. The round does go into the barrel, but the bolt isn't smooth otherwise. Operates smoothly otherwise. He said, so Greg and I both said the same thing. This sounds like the barrel was not completely bored out correctly.
It does happen.
It's a go, no go.
Yeah, they have a gauge which you can buy from Brownells or a lot of other places, and You place it in the gun, and it will tell you if the chamber has been bored out correctly. And I've even seen it where the chamber may have been bored correctly, but it was not finished. It was not polished correctly, like there was a burr that was holding the round back. And this is not something you generally do at home unless you've got gunsmithing skills. Peter, you need to take it to a gunsmith, explain the problem, and he can easily put a go no go chamber checker in there, and he can tell you if it has been drilled correctly. And well, some gunsmiths might have the tools to do this. This is usually a return it to the factory and have them fix the problem, because the equipment they do it on is highly sophisticated, and it's usually better to just have them redo it.
Absolutely. Okay,
but
so
it is unsafe to fire. You do not force rounds into this and pull the trigger. You will regret it.
I told them bring
it.
it back. I told them bring it back.
Yeah.
It's a brand new gun. Bring it back and make them replace it.
Exactly.
So, Peter, I will message you for your address. I know you listen. I will message you for your address, and you will be getting the very first of our other than myself, the very first of our Firearms Chat Velcro patches, which I did an exhaustive search to find the right designer. Rick is right. To find the right designer of products is everything these days.
Exactly.
Additional emails we have this week are from Darren. Darren's email is, Greg, I am glad you are back on the show.
Thanks, Darren.
Welcome back. Greg and Dr. Bill, I have a question. I am trying to build a Charger 22 with a hand crank, similar to your 1022 anti-aircraft gun setup. Doc, where did you get the hand crank? Darren, I got the hand crank from Activator Firearms. Okay? It's a hand crank that they make specifically for 1022 platform guns. It'll work in single, or it'll work with the adapter. It works on double.
And they've been making these for a long time.
About 15, 16 years.
I was thinking it was close to 20, so yeah.
It's about 15, 16 years, yeah. I have this one about 3 years, and because that was the first thing I got. I actually built the gun platform around the trigger activator.
And if you fire it anywhere where people can hear it, be prepared for the park ranger or sheriff to show up, because they'll report you as having a fully automatic weapon.
I did it on April 18th. I had it out, and I had it set up, and some pictures were taken, and people were like, "Come on, shoot it!" And I didn't bring the 110 round drums. I brought 250 round drums. So I had the young people with nimble fingers load up the drums. And we snapped it all in. Now, mind you, this is on an anti-aircraft, like a tri-leg pedestal. And not only can you tilt it up and down at 10 degrees in each direction, but you could tilt it 20 degrees side to side while you're shooting it, while you're turning the crank. And right in the middle between the two 1022s is an anti-aircraft sight. And
love it.
We ran 3, 4, so I want to say 400 rounds of 22. And by the time we finished the fourth twin 50s, park ranger pulled right up to our spot.
Yep.
And he walked over, he looked at it. He saw that it was all 22 brass. He looked at us. He looked at the gun again. He looked at me. And I said, "Well, you keep looking at it, Ranger. Do you want to try it?" And he says, you would let me try it? I said, you want to shoot it, you got to load it. He did. He loaded a drum.
Nice.
And he was like, that's just too cool. My 9-year-old would love this. And I said...
You can go through so much ammunition, though.
No, and my buddy Ed, who's our group's resident firearms instructor, leaned over and said, why? Does this kid want to be like a bubble gunner and a B-17?
Something fun to do.
So it's from Actuated Firearms now, and look it up. It was $49.99, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay, Cindy. Cindy is from Tennessee, and Cindy, I lived in Clarksville for 3 years when I was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. She is a little closer to Memphis, and she says, I work at Graceland. Graceland has a very strict no employee firearms policy unless you are security. I have an ex-husband who is stalking me. I have a court order and I have a Tennessee firearms permit, concealed carry permit, and I have a court order that says he's stalking me. Yet, my employer does not want to let me carry on the job. Now, mind you, Graceland, as an entity, is not one company. There are different companies that are in charge of, that have contracts with different things. So she does not tell me, Cindy, what she does for Graceland. So I cannot tell her how to proceed.
Well, just in general, Cindy, you have to remember, it's their call, it's their company. So if you can make the choice to carry for your own personal protection, and generally, women that carry will use like the bra holsters for maximum concealment.
Right.
But if
the Lisa Lupa flashbang.
Right. And but when you make that decision, if your ex-husband comes around and you shoot him, or if you even just threaten him and somebody sees the gun, you will be unemployed. It's standard procedure for these companies to fire first and ask questions later. They don't care, because their actuarial tables from their insurance companies tell them it's better that you get killed than you defend yourself, because you might shoot an innocent bystander, which then the company is responsible for.
Right, it's better for you to get killed. It's
to.
Better for you to get killed, and they pay out your insurance beneficiary, than you kill somebody in your self-defense.
Because they only have to give your family $25,000 or thereabouts, so it's much, much cheaper for you to be killed than for somebody not involved to be killed. And since there will be, even if you kill your ex-husband, there will be a civil suit. His family will sue you personally, and if you were on duty, they will sue Graceland as well. So you would be part of the civil suit, but they'd be trying to extort money from your employer at the same time. So it's a very touchy situation, and it's really up to you to decide what's important to you. If it's important for you to follow the rules and not worry about carrying that gun every day, then you need to find a new employer, one that will allow you to defend yourself.
I've been to Graceland. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, I have too.
I've actually been on Elvis's tour bus. That's parked outside.
Yeah,
it's a blast.
It's a great place to visit.
Yeah,
it's just sad that the employees are disposable, and their safety is not taken into account.
Yeah, I agree. Okay.
And that's not, I didn't mean that on Graceland exclusively. I'm saying this is a widespread trend amongst employers.
Okay. Silas, and Silas writes to us from. Silas writes to us from North Carolina, and he says, very disappointed that the RNC won't be here, but I'm getting ready for my North Carolina Tar Heels football season, and this year they've imposed shot spotter and gun radar technology as you pull into the parking lot, which means I can no longer have my guns in my RV when we go to Tar Heels tailgates.
RVs are a legal nightmare, and I say that as a RV owner. We looked into this, and depending on the state and depending on the jurisdiction, your RV can be considered your home,
Right?
but only when it's parked. When it's in motion, it's a vehicle. So you actually have two sets of laws that are conflicting with each other almost always.
Right.
And most law enforcement treat the RV, since you park it and live out of it, they will treat it as your residence and give you a little latitude on carrying firearms. But you would have to talk to both an attorney in the state, and you should probably talk to law enforcement in the state to see what they have been told to do. Calling a sergeant or a lieutenant in the police department or sheriff's department would go a long ways to letting you know if it's legal. Now, obviously, if the stadium says no and you're pulling onto their parking lot,
well, he's got to deal with the university police, which is going to be in charge of the stadium. So
if they say no firearms at all, then chances are you can't. You're right, you can't take them on. But there are, if you're in an area that's not, say, owned by the university, or you have a way you can tailgate, like next to the stadium, you could do that if you're on state or federal property and just follow the state rules. But this is with an RV, it's a very touchy subject. I spent a few hours with our attorney figuring it all out, because we were going to different states and different shows and different things, and it's you have to know literally you have to know the jurisdiction of every single state and what they're going to do if they catch you with it.
All right,
we only had one officer ever ask us if we had firearms.
Or as professional truck drivers who carry guns say, you have to do the disarmament dance.
Yes, exactly.
So we're considering an RV for a trip to Montana, Idaho, and Eastern Washington. Now, Montana and Idaho, not so bad. Washington these days, maybe a problem.
Maybe a huge problem. Not Eastern, but Western.
Right. Well, we don't think we'd go Western. I mean, if anything, when I get to Seattle and hook up with friends of this podcast that live in the Seattle area, it will be on our way to a cruise. So the guns will be, if we drive there in an RV, the guns will be locked in the RV and parked. But that's a story for another time. Angie, who won a book from us in December, she responded to our trivia question, and we sent her a copy of Origins and Development of the Second Amendment by David Hardy. Has a question for us, another question, and she also mentioned She was glad to hear that you were back, Greg.
Thank you.
She has been carrying downsized lately with the summer temperatures where she lives, right? Where she lives in on the Texas-Louisiana border, and she has been reduced to carrying a stub-nose 38. She says, what is the best defensive ammo to make every shot of my 5 shots count? And she's carrying a 6.42 with a Tyler T grip.
You're not going to like the answer.
Me or her?
The thing is, Angie, under stress in a self-defense situation, it's almost universally 50% of the shots that miss. And it's not because of the ammo, and it's not because of the gun. It's because somebody is trying to take your life, and
so your stress level is through the ceiling.
Yeah, and you're trying to stop somebody from taking your life, which is something that a lot of people have never done. And so what it comes down to is the best ammo is whatever you're most accurate with when you're stressing. And the only way you can find that out is to actually do ammo testing with your gun and have the best ammo that works with your firearm and with your style of shooting in it. Obviously, I would say use the defensive rounds, Federal HST and Hornady Critical Duty and Spear Gold Dot, and the ones that when they hit the target, they're going to open up the maximum amount and stop the person as fast as possible.
And add to that you're being stressed. Play loud music behind you. Have somebody yelling at you behind you, even if you're wearing ear pro. Have somebody behind you slamming pots and pans. Those are all stressful things.
The other
take
thing
place
you can
around you shooting your gun.
The other thing you can do, like when we used to shoot in the backyard or backfield of my friend's house, we used to run around the house 3 times. And the whole point of that is to, when your adrenal gland dumps everything into your body, most people aren't ready for it, and the heart will get going and your head will pound. And the best way to recreate that is to do really strenuous exercise right before you shoot. And I'll tell you, it's amazing what happens to your accuracy after you run around a house 3 times. And then we were using a shot timer. So we would stand there waiting for the timer to tell us to fire. And you're literally sitting there going, come on, come on, come on. What? And then when it finally goes off, you go, ah, and you're just completely stressed out. And the first, I think, 7 or 8 times I did that, my shooting sucked. And I finally got to the point where I learned when I stopped and turned the shot timer on, I would immediately start controlling my breathing and start getting everything under control. And I got to the point where I was better at it because I was ready for the stress.
Which is the same thing they did in the marksmanship school in
was it really?
Army Ranger in the marksmanship unit.
Okay.
They make you run around and do exercises, jump up and down, before you get down on the mat and take your shot. And now you're all sweaty, and your palms are wet, and your heart's racing, and your eardrums are pounding, and the sweat's rolling into your eyes, and you got to wipe it out of your eyes, and that's stressing you out. And then you put your eyeball to the reticle, and you're trying to focus, and you're stressed out because you can't get the focus down right away, and you have to adjust the focus ring. These are all things that add extra little bits of stress to the stress you've already put on yourself.
And what Bill said about having somebody, after doing this, after you get yourself all worked up and your adrenaline is pumping, and you're trying to aim that shot. Having somebody scream at you or bang something behind you that's distracting, that's another good thing, because you don't know what's going to be happening. Somebody could see you with a gun in a real life situation, pointed at another person, and they might actually hit another car. They might be driving into a parking lot and they see you and freak and don't hit the brakes in time. You might be listening to a car accident behind your head when this is going on. I mean, the stress, the amount of things that are going to distract you and stress you out is incredible. And that is the best way to know how you're going to handle those 5 shots perfectly. So once you find the ammo that works best with your gun, then I would say start training your body. And if you do that correctly, you'll have more than 50%, hopefully 3-4 shots on target, and you'll be in condition to do it. It's not a lot of fun, but I'll tell you, after you do it and you get good at it, you feel really good, because you feel like now you know what the stress is like and that you can handle it.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, it also when you do this, you're also training your body how to handle adrenaline dumps, and you can get to the point where your body does not dump all of the adrenaline. Your adrenal gland actually learns that you're not always in need of all of it. And I actually got to the point where, like in stressful situations, I'd only get a little bit of adrenaline. And that's really helpful, because you don't get that shaking, nauseous feeling from it.
Right. Okay. David S. And he is a U.S. Coast Guard petty officer. So we thank him for his service. And he is a member of one of the boarding parties for the U.S. Coast Guard. So that's talk about stress. Doing some serious work right there. He carries a SIG 229 DAO in 40 S&W. His question is, out of all of the new defensive ammo, because they're not making as much defensive ammo, he puts in parentheses, for the 40 S&W anymore, what would we recommend? Now, I don't shoot 40 S&W, but if I'm going by the gauge of what they've introduced recently for the 9mm, the Gold Dot G2 line, the Federal HST line, if you could find Critical Duty in 40. And I'm assuming that this is your work gun or your off-duty gun. I don't know which. But those are my suggestions. Greg?
Well, I shoot 40 because 357
7 SIG is the same as 40.
Neck down 40.
Right.
So my suggestion is always start with if the manufacturer of the gun makes ammo, try that first. And I would say V-Crown would be the way to go for a SIG to start out with.
Yeah, I love SIG. I love the V-Crown ammo.
Yeah, and then basically what Bill said, Hornady, Critical Duty, Federal HST, Spear Gold Dot, any of these that are basically, if you're paying about $1.50, $2.50 a round.
Barnes, X-Tac, any of those.
Yeah, these are all high quality defensive rounds, and you need to find what works good for your gun. But I think SIG has done such a great job of matching their ammo to their weapon systems that I would at least start there. Get 150 rounds of SIG V-Crown and see how it does accuracy-wise in your SIG.
The Black Hills defensive ammo, the Dynamic Research Technologies, 85 in 9mm. It's 85 grain frangible. I have a couple 100 rounds of that. That's some really good stuff.
You want really heavy hitting, you can go Underwood, but some departments don't want you to use the overstuffed ammo.
Right. Okay. Two more. We've got one from Hal.
Okay.
And we'll get to that one now. Hal writes us from Maine. And
cool.
Hal,
cold up there.
Yeah, it's cold up there until now, until June. And then it's still cold up there at night. Hal says that he makes his living on the water. He is a charter boat captain. And
nice.
The problem is that in order to get licensed as a charter boat captain in the state of Maine, you have to jump through some stupid hoops. He said originally you were not allowed to be armed on board your own watercraft, but then when they started trying to hijack boats about 15 years ago, they changed that. And that if you get a Maine permit, if you get a Maine state CPL, you can carry on your boat. So myself and my 3 crew members carry. He says, about 3 weeks ago, we have this rowdy bachelor party to go fishing, and they decide that they're going to start throwing my crewmen over the side. He said, I fired 2 shots in the air. I made sure I fired them out to sea so that they wouldn't drop back onto the boat. And one of the guys on the bachelor party complained to the local constable. Now, every time we go out, that constable gives me the dirty eyeball up and down. What do I do about this? Now, I suggest that you protect your business by posting that the ship's captain and crew are armed, and we'll take all necessary precautions to whatever.
Yeah, it's the one thing is the constable is giving you the eye. That's a good thing, because what that means is, despite his personal feelings, despite his politics, and despite what the media has drilled into his head, he can't do anything to you. He doesn't like the fact that he can't touch you. You're obviously following the law and doing what you have to do. You made the decision to protect your guys and protect your boat, and that put you in conflict with the powers that be. Unfortunately, for all of us that carry guns, that is a constant chance we take. And it's just going to have to, it's one of those things only time is going to stop that. I would suggest, since you handle things like bachelor parties, you might want to consider one of these, like pepper blasters. They make these. It kind of looks like a little. It looks like a little itty bitty red 12 gauge, and it has 2 shots to it, but it blasts out pepper spray like crazy, and it's very forceful. It has a fairly good range, and I think it's called a pepper blaster.
Yes, Kimber pepper blaster. Okay. It's about 25 feet.
Yeah. Okay. And see, that will cover 2 or 3 or 4 rowdy guys if they're sitting on a boat, and in that way, you discourage them. It doesn't matter if they complain, and basically nobody saw a weapon. So if you're going to be dealing with drunk partygoers, I say that it's really good to have non-lethal deterrence. You could even, depending on your state law, you could even have possibly have a taser for the people that maybe the pepper spray wasn't enough to convince them. And it's not something you have to carry. mind you. I'm not saying you should carry this stuff like a cop does, all stuck to his belt. Simply put it, put 2 or 3 of them around the boat in, little hidden places where you and the crew can get to them. And anything that you could use, there's a lot of times you can use a non-lethal weapon where a lethal weapon would have been illegal. So that would probably put you in good graces with the constable. At least you have non-lethal alternatives. If you're talking to him, you could explain to him that you didn't like the outcome of that complaint either, and so you've taken steps that you won't have to pull, or it's less likely you'll have to pull your gun again. And if he's reasonable, that might get him to turn off the hatred a little bit. But unfortunately, you did what you were supposed to do. You weren't guilty of doing anything wrong, but you're just running into the people that that's not their thing, and they don't believe in it, and they're going to hate on you because you do.
Yeah, that's about the size of it. All right, well, that's going to about do it for tonight. We're at, we stretched out pretty good tonight, Greg. We're at 2:21. Any final thoughts?
No, it's be safe out there. If you should be carrying all the time. If you go to the convenience store for a gallon of milk, have your weapon on you, and please be safe. Check, keep your eyes open, not on your phone, because that unawareness can kill you. If you're watching the people around you and watching what's going on and listening to conversations, it will always save your life. It's you have to train to do it. It took me 6 months before I realized I was turning into a very aware person. But you will find times that it will save you. So
That's right.
Be careful, be safe, and always be armed.
All right, and my final thought of the week is, besides the fact that I'm so glad I have my partner back now, it's 3 weeks, I want to remind everybody that we're coming into the warmer weather now in most areas in the United States. A couple of weekends will be July 4th. Will be a Saturday this year, so there are going to be a lot of amateurs out. It's 2 weeks from this Saturday. It's going to be crazy. So
That it will.
Like Greg says, keep an awareness of your situational awareness all the time. Be prepared.
You owe it to your family.
And you owe it to yourself.
Right.
All right, that's going to do it. We're going to be OUT out. Good night, folks.
Good night, folks.